Thank you. Thank you. How many of you are seeing that for the first time today? Wow. 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 It was a pleasure to see that, enjoy that with you. And it's a pleasure to be here too. It's my first time in Australia, and as Pauline told me before coming out, that Boston and Melbourne are sister cities, which is fantastic. And I think that we could do a little collaboration right off the bat. I would love to take your postal vote and our president and put them a vote. Bye-bye. Before starting, I want to say one of the things that has truly deeply touched and impressed me is at the beginning today and even last night of just before this started, acknowledging the elders, the traditional elders and ancestors. And I have to tell you, the whole reason I stand here before you today is because I spent, after doing my graduate work, I lived with the Navajo people for 2 years. And that's where I learned my deep respect for our elders. In American culture, there just isn't there. It's such absent of this respect and for our elders, and so that I went from there really having such a keen awareness, and so it was delightful to be here and see that respect continued before our conference began. So I just wanted to say a few things, and I'll just say right off the bat too. You'll see throughout my presentation, I'm going to do a little bit about Gen Silent, but I wanted to frame this for you from what I've heard, just on some things that I think could be great other areas that we can help collaborate together in terms of engagement, outreach and engagement. You guys have wonderful trainings and things like that are happening. It's just fantastic that the work that Val's is doing and Latrobe and so many of the other groups that are here. But I wanted to highlight some of the programs that we are doing in Boston and see how we could, which of those we can seed and help take off here. You will see throughout my presentation, everything is LGBT. You saw that in the slideshow LGBT, and I know you're here. It seems like everywhere you go, it's a different collection of the alphabet soup. We haven't got to the I piece yet, and we are now doing these trainings. We're doing one particular training, which is got a grant to train the entire city of Cambridge, every single municipal worker in the entire city, through all this stuff, and going through all the letters and things like that. So hopefully now we're going to start to see more inclusion of addressing of some of the elders and letters in this. I have to add too that one of our groups out in Western Mass, one of the LGBT senior groups, they love to put the newsletter out, and it seems like their line of their letters that keeps getting longer and longer. And sometimes some of these letters, I'm like, recently there were 2 A's down there. I was like, what's the second A? And I looked down below, and it said aromatic, and I was like, aromatic, like gays that smell pretty? I don't understand why that's a protected class, but some said, no, aromantic, Bob, aromantic. So, so anyway, I will be here through the weekend. I can, and certainly I'm so excited for the coming back out ball. And I can say more to anyone about Gen Silent and the making of that impact that's had around the world, but I know you want a little catch up on where everyone is now. So this actually was a photo that was taken at our big world premiere when we did this. So Lois and Sheree, Lois's line, we're going to die here, feet first around the coffin corners. Well, that didn't come out exactly as they planned. Lois, one day on the way to the women's brunch, fell and broke her hip. And even though they had that wonderful that chair going up in the house, they were in a brownstone, and there was like a really steep flight of stairs. There was no chair getting them up that. So during her recovery, she was literally trapped in her house there. So they are in an assisted living, and they are the bells of the balls of this. They were at first the only LGBT folks there, and now the others have started coming. But they have just right off the bat, the slide down here at the bottom is we did a screening of Gen Silent, and they're off in the far right-hand corner, and oh my God, they are just so, the folks there have truly embraced and supported them. But Lois and Sheree said, this is exhausting. Like, they're the it couple there. Everyone wants to have dinner with them. So they're like, when is this gonna stop? Mel is doing very well. I think he was born to be a caregiver. He is now caring for his 92-year-old mother, and they look like twins there in the photo on the right. Another nice little piece about Mel is that he has been asked to be on the board for Somerville Cambridge Elder Services, the group that, and that's really exciting. John O'Neill is retiring, and so one of Mel's jobs is he's on a task force to help find the new executive director. So that's really exciting. Lawrence is just, these are like two young guys gushing in first love here. He and Irving have been together. I've lost count of ever since Alexander passed, but they are just as happy as clams. They've moved to Florida. They're trying to get another Cafe Emmanuel going in West Palm Beach area. It was a little scary a few months ago with all the hurricanes coming through, so we were all like reaching out, how are you doing? And they're cooking a typical Lawrence and Irving style, cooking up this fabulous storm because they knew that pretty soon the power was going to go out and they needed to be prepared for that, but they're doing quite well. Lisa and I have, the LGBT Aging Project is now part of the Fenway Institute, which is just an incredible opportunity for us because it has such huge impact on the national scene on LGBT health in the United States, and a lot of research funding, a lot of programs going on there. So for us to be part of that, and now they are looking at the full spectrum from insemination, childhood, and all the way down to aging. So that's been great. The photo on the left is a couple years ago. Both of us were invited by the old White House, the Obama administration invited a number of people to be part of the first ever White House summit on LGBT Elder Housing. So that was incredible. And Dale, you can see over in the corner, Dale is just fabulous and doing great. He's still the executive director of Ethos, and now launched out and has a whole funding stream called the Ethos Equality Fund that raises money with donors to fund specifically LGBT older adult programs, which is great. And the particular one here was the launch of a new meal site for LGBT elders of color. And Stu is doing great, and he has done another film, which if you get a chance, and I think Pauline's hinted that maybe the next conference you'll be seeing his new film, Reel in the Closet, which it's wonderful. It's putting together old home movies that really tell the whole history of the whole gay movement, the history of the gay movement through hidden home movies. But the other one, he's done so many very serious things. He's got this new project, and I tell you just have to look. It's on YouTube. It's called Queer Ghost Hunters, and let me tell you, it is hysterical, but it's true. I mean, there's a real, in America, there's all these like reality shows about these ghost hunters, and here's now Stu's got the first one about queer ghost hunters, and they're going into old convents because they know there must have been lesbians hiding in convents. So it's great. In one of the trailers, you can see they drive, and they're all real people, and they drive up and they open up the car, and they're like, come with us, we'll take you back to the convent, you come see. So it's great. Anyway, in the time I have, I just want to talk about a couple programs that have been, I just narrowed everything down there to the things that have been the most impactful for our LGBT older adults in Massachusetts. So I just want to talk about the very first one here is community conversations, and I think Pauline said something to me last night. This tagline, I think I wrote it down. Yeah, nothing about us without us, and that really describes what community conversations are. For us, it's a two levels of the training that has to happen when we go to. Our mandate is to try and get every single mainstream elder service provider in senior center, aging service access point, assisted living facilities, to get them trained. See, we can do this cultural competency training, but you can't do this training, hand them a lovely rainbow sticker, let them slap it on the window, and then walk away and wait for the folks to line up coming in. You've got to do this whole wave of outreach, because as you just saw in Jen Silent, and we've heard from other speakers today, all the what folks have gone through for their entire lives, this sense of stigma and discrimination, that the fear that's in there, and the distrust of mainstream institutions is so huge. So one of the models that has worked tremendously well is, after the training is over, to begin to identify within that agency a smaller LGBT task force, we call Open Door Task Force. And they begin to meet. They invite a couple people in that are from in the community as a focus group, and prepare for this, prepare for a community conversation. And when you do a community conversation, this is really the agencies coming out. This is the agency coming out and saying, we're here and we are committed, we are diverse, and we're inclusive, we're welcoming, and this is our stand. And through these community conversations, it's so important because one of the things you do is you're doing a needs assessment, and you are finding out what the unmet needs are in that particular area. You're finding out what the interests are. You're finding out the basic demographics. You need to find out issues around transportation, who can get there, when they're available. You need to find out gender, all these different things to begin to build programs. And I think that the other really, truly important thing is when you are advertising for these community conversations, you are advertising not just for LGBT elders, but so many people in the community, faith leaders, political figures, elected officials, public safety, as many folks as you can get in the door as possible, and allies. And then because no one group or small task force can do this work on your own. Everyone that works in elder care is just so stretched thin, and to tell them, well, now you need to do program for LGBT folks, and then they're just going to see them keel over in front of you. But if you can build your volunteer base and your base of allies from these community conversations, then you've got a whole work group there. And there are people that are out there that are just waiting, that they've wanted to do something like this for so long, and they just need to be asked. So that's a wonderful thing. Also within the community conversations, you find out what venues are in the town, where can you hold events, where what services can people donate. So that's really, really important. One of the things that you saw, which I think is an absolute lifesaver, is these LGBT community meal programs, because you're providing a regular place for people to come to on a weekly or monthly basis. And I think that's critical, because social isolation is the demon that we're all fighting against here. But to have a place for people to come together, and Lawrence said it so beautifully in several times throughout the film. I'm so proud that he was so honest that he was considering taking his own life, and then came to Cafe Emmanuel and found a group of people that just welcomed him in open arm. And he said, as he said in the film, he could go to the senior center, and there would be activities and programs there for him, but not the loving embrace of people for accepting him for his authentic self there. One of the guys that I had would travel to Cafe Emmanuel. He would take 2 different public buses for an hour and 45 minutes to come there every single week, rain or shine, and he said that was the only time during the week anyone spoke to him. He was considered the gay guy in 3B in his senior housing. No one would speak to him. He was completely ostracized. So to come here to have some place was really important. So these have been just a wonderful tool. And I think that it allows people to really be so much of their authentic selves as aging people, LGBT folks, and some of them we have with folks of color. We've created meal sites around there. One of the things that I realized when I first started taking over running this one, Cafe Emmanuel, was that it was mostly men. And I was really frustrated, like, what's going on? I would do women's programming, and I would invite special people, but the reality is, in America, the gender inequality on the pay scale for their generation was huge, and so all these guys are happily retired, but their female counterparts were still working. So you see the picture on the right there, we started, and you saw some of the clips of that in the film that Lois and Sheree are going to, a women's out to brunch program, and now we've got 2 of them and a third one opening up soon as well. But they're great. I felt like we're doing our little urban planning, looking at census data here, and looking where, and of course, census in the United States is only tracking same-sex couples, but you can, extrapolate from there where folks are, so you can see, certainly down in Provincetown on the Cape, and then the Metro Boston area, about a huge number out in Western Mass. So that made us really trying to begin to look at these. And so this is what we have. We have right now. This actually a couple of new ones have come onto the scene since then. But you can look at this as a glass half full and glass half empty. When we did a research study to look at comparing data from mainstream congregate meal sites. Now these are all. I should back up a little bit and say these are all federally funded. The very first one, Cafe Emmanuel, which is featured in the film. That was under the Bush administration. Little did he know that he was funding old queers when But yeah, these are Title III-C nutrition funds from the Older Americans Act. And so all of these are federally funded LGBT-friendly programs, and we say that they're congregate, community meals for LGBT older adults and their friends, because you can't do the reverse discrimination. But when we did a study comparing the folks that attended mainstream sites and the folks that attended LGBT sites, one of the things we found was that people that were traveling to the mainstream ones were traveling about a few blocks, a couple blocks and going to them. But when you looked at the LGBT ones, people were traveling all over the state. And so immediately that kind of, I started to panic about that, because what happens as people are aging and they can't travel? And like that gentleman that was going an hour and 45 minutes, well, that's not going to be realistic when he's 83 years old to be traveling, that far. So the next thing and this is and this is a great tool to be able to have and all elder service providers, case managers, to be able to hand this in their packet of literature where all these meals are. I mean, with a rainbow jumps right out and hits you over the head here. This is just Lawrence. You heard him quote about that about how important it was for him to go to one. But so the next way to address is you really want programs in every single town. And in the United States, we have a senior center or council on aging in every single town. So therefore, you've got a ready-made place. Now you just need to make that so that is welcoming, inclusive. And we've gotten a new initiative that's been in the works for several years now called A Welcoming Place for All. And every single senior center is going through the training to become welcoming, not just for LGBT, but for all kinds of issues of diversity, disability, race, ethnicity. So I just think these when this happens, it's just an incredible sense of community that's built there. This photo right here is from Orleans down on the Cape for their Thanksgiving meal. I mean, look at that. They have 85 people showed up for that meal at a senior center. One of the things we do when we have senior centers start this is oftentimes the fear is a little bit great, so we say try and do this at, after hours or weekends or something like that, so people feel a little bit safer to come in here. But I mean, there's so much to see in that photo right there. This particular population, as we all know, is so greatly estranged from their families of origin. So the meals like this, a Thanksgiving meal, is really important. There is their sense of Thanksgiving. For Cafe Emmanuel, we put so much time and effort into all the holiday meals, especially Thanksgiving. We do over 100 meals, and because for our folks, that is their Thanksgiving. That's their one big kind of traditional holiday meal. Some of I want to say a little bit about programs. So you've got these meal sites, and the meal sites begin to act as ad hoc senior centers, but also now we're extending out and we're beginning to do LGBT programming within each of the senior centers. So now the next piece is to start thinking about programs that you can do for folks that are LGBT-friendly programs, and a lot of this stuff has been shaped around intergenerational work. The more that you can reach out to the colleges and universities like that, and to get the social work programs, to get the art therapy programs, there's collaboration right there waiting to happen. This particular one here was a group of art therapy interns that were with us for a whole year, and they would come in, and as everyone came into Cafe Emmanuel, they had this whole table full of these colored little strips of paper, and they asked the seniors, write down something every day. Every time you come in, grab a color, whatever color speaks to you, write whatever you want, and then so we have this whole year of this snapshot of our year there, which is an incredible experience. And the other one here is this has been a phenomenal project. This is a collaboration with it's an orchestra, the Palaver Strings. It's a musician-led orchestra, and it's called the Life Songs Project. And they partner with us, and a group of the musicians meets with the participating LGBT seniors. They talk about their lives, and then they ask the senior to go back after they do this first meeting with the senior in their group. They say to go back and write a letter to your younger self. Knowing what you know now, what would you say to your younger self? They come back with this letter, and they work with one of the orchestra members who is a lyricist, and they create lyrics to the song, and then the orchestra orchestrates the whole thing. And I tell you, you can't listen to these things without like 3 boxes of Kleenex. They are so beautiful. So we did our first one last year. We're starting the next one this year. when you start to do these things, you always need to think I'm really big. Pauline, where are we? Am I on time here? 10 minutes, okay. I'm really big when I do an event, not only look to see who's there, but to see who's not there. When we first started all of our work with the LGBT Aging Project, and we had so many programs, we had LGBT bereavement programs, we had caregiver, we started Cafe Emmanuel, so all these things. There were a lot of things happening in Pride, but we weren't seeing any LGBT elders of color, and I thought something is truly wrong here. What is going on? Why are not folks coming out? And the same thing, we used the same principle that we did with the women to try and find out what was going on. Did some focus groups, and invited people together to talk. And in this particular issue with the LGBT elders of color, we're trying to find out where are people, where are they going? And we met with some of the leaders of color in the gay and lesbian community. And they said, we said, you have older people coming to your events. We have a Hispanic, Black, Gay Caucus, queer women of color, these groups like that. And they said, we've got older people. We've got folks up to their 40s or whatever. I'm like, that no, that's not older. And they kind of looked at blank stares, and they said, no one past that. There's no one older past that coming to their events. And as I continued to try and figure out where are they, people saying, they're in church. And I said, what church? And they said, Union United Methodist. I went to Union United, and they said, oh no, we don't have none of those folks here. Well, they were there, they're just not out. So here you see what's happening, the different intersectionality of race and ethnicity. They feel like they can't go to mainstream LGBT events because of race. Because they feel they won't be accepted because they're folks of color. They can't go to the groups of their own of LGBT groups of color because they feel old, and so they feel like ageism there. And then they can't go and be their authentic selves in church, being gay, because of homophobia. So now we've started this whole new initiative called Flashback Sunday, celebrating the legacy of LGBT elders, and it has just been booming and taking off. And so our events draw, over 100 folks to these things, and seeing people come together like this, where they can celebrate all of their authentic selves in one place, being older, being folks of color, and being LGBTQ is an incredible opportunity. Here's the magic, and this is the last one that I want to just talk about, is the intergenerational programs. And again, just so many of you have the resources all around you, all the colleges and the universities there, that they're hip and they're with it, and they're ready to jump in and engage like this. Listening to our seniors and the stories and just the magic that happens when you bring youth and elders together is incredible. And you probably have heard of SAGE, which is a national organization in the United States. It stands for Services and Advocacy for LGBT Elders. They, in this past year, started a thing called Sage Tables, and it's bringing people together to break bread together. And the whole motto of a Sage Table is, what would our community look like when age no longer divides us? What does caring across the generations mean? So we did one of these, and we did a table, and we had 5 of the 6 living generations, and we scattered the table so everyone was organized. So there are people from different generations at each table, and created some questions around there. And the mark of a good event is when it's over and nobody leaves. And so the photo on the right there, you could tell a novel about it. Like, look at across the generation of every single one of these. So you got a guy over here in the center with a man bun, talking up here with this guy, which you can't see, but the older guy that he's talking to has a kilt on. It was an amazing and incredible event. So I really encourage any type of opportunities like that we can get in and bring youth and elders together, because that's the shape of the future for us, and it begins. That's how we can change the world. And one of the things that I always end our intergenerational gatherings together and asking people about the time vault. What would you put in to this time vault that really kind of captures your if there was some object that kind of symbolized the time when you were coming of age, and some of our guys want to put in their disco boots and all this stuff, but it really opens up the door to talk about what our elders want to be, the younger generations, to be remembered, and I think that's really important. So anyway, if there's any questions about, do I have a couple minutes for questions about Gen Silent? Are there any burning questions about Gen Silent I can answer while I'm here? And I certainly will be here through for the rest of today and tomorrow and the ball as well. No questions. Everyone's silent. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the big step that we had, it was on national television. It was on Logo. I don't know if does Logo. Do you have Logo out here? Which is a LGBT network, but I hope eventually he'll get that onto Netflix. It just we need more people to see it. I mean, it's a game changer. This film has just traveled all around the world, and it has become the #1 tool for people to, because it puts faces and stories on the whole idea of LGBT aging, and the challenges that folks face. And I think for a lot of people, Chris Ann is one of the first trans folks that they can really hear that story and hear the impact. So yeah, anything. And oh, it has been. Oh, okay. Oh, that's great. Yeah, someone's saying it's been on demand on SBS. Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And our goal is to try and we really try and break down silos wherever we can. And a lot of times, all of our events, we have people all across the spectrum of, and our folks living with HIV are present in these. But then there's times where there needs to be specific, either caregiving or support group programs, and those are the times that are. That we have things specifically for people living with HIV. But for the meal programs, there are, everyone's included in all of those. We have done different groups. Again, it's like breakout groups through the meal sites of. We just started this one recently about caring, loss across the generations of people that are survivors with HIV and AIDS. So, yeah. Anything? Okay. No, I'm getting there. All right. Thank you all very much. I'm going to turn back to Pauline.